Okay. But so we can make this. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all for coming today. And I'm glad you're all in your seats and you have your lunch. And I wanted to say a quick thank you to all of the sponsors that help provide the food that you're eating today and the water that you're drinking. So we have Bowles Funeral Home, we have Pines Funeral Home, we have Magnolia Gardens, we have Brookdale Senior Living, we have Homeward Kitchen, and we have Jennifer Garner, Garner Law Firm. And thank you all so much for coming and providing the lovely refreshments. So my name is Lynn Drinkwater, and I am the SEC Program Coordinator here at the Senior Center. And we have a lovely garden. As you drive up over to this side of the building is a lovely garden if you've never seen it before. And that is created and maintained by the Master Gardeners. And they are a fabulous group of volunteers. And so they had gotten in touch with me and said, we'd love to do a program. And at the same time, we received from the county these emails from the county extension over in the Ag Center, the Agricultural Center in Carthage, that they were doing these lunch and learns. So I thought, well, this is perfect timing. Why don't I do a combo? So we have the Master Gardener speaking first on how to create a garden and get the best soil. And then we have the county extension speaking on how to harvest what it is that you grow. So I thought it all worked out perfectly. And I also want to give a quick shout out to Dakota in the back, who brought all of her Tupperware information and all of her little wares, because she called me out of the blue 2 days ago and said, hey, I could teach a class on how to create your own spices. One like for barbecue rub, one for like your own ranch dressing. So we're going to get together after this program and come up with another date where we'll create a little class on how to make your own rubs, which would be fabulous, or dressings and whatever else you might need. So without further ado, if you've never been here before, if you go out the doors and to the left, it is the restroom is there. We are filming this right now, or videotaping this on our YouTube channel. So after the there you go. So all right, we're back. All right. There you go. Thank you.
Can you guys hear me okay? Perfect, perfect. Well, good afternoon. My name is Betty. I am, as Lynn said, a Moore County Master Gardener. Not too sure about the master part, but I will tell you that I am a very passionate gardener. So we'll see how it goes today. For those of you who don't know, the Master Gardener program is under our North Carolina Cooperative Extension program. And the extension program, let's see. Okay.
Closer the better.
Okay.
Pretend you're a rock star.
Oh, I don't know about that. Anyway, the Cooperative Extension program has a partnership with NC State and AT&T Universities, an educational partnership, and also with the local county governments here. So in Moore County, our Cooperative Extension programs focus on a lot of things. It's a very important resource for our county. So if you don't know about it, check it out. But they focus on sustainable and profitable agriculture, community economic development, healthy and accessible and safe nutrition, positive youth development, which is better known as 4-H, and the management of viable home gardens and landscapes. And so it's located in Carthage. A lot of you may know that, but it's right behind the Moore County Health Department is where the Ag Center is. So there's a beautiful garden out front called the Flagship Garden. So if you haven't seen that, you really need to go up and take a look. And Deborah McGiffin is our county director. So today, I want to really talk about how to take a soil sample and why it's important. That may sound a little boring, but hopefully maybe it won't be. It's just very important if you're a gardener or if you grow vegetable crops or just anything you do in the soil, you need to know about taking a soil sample. So first of all, how many people here have ever done a soil sample? Oh, perfect. Okay, well, maybe you'll learn a little something different today. Hopefully it won't be boring for you if you know how to do it. So I'm going to give you the dirt on soil sampling and why it's important, okay? This sheet, I know everybody can't see it, but I just kind of wanted to do the visual on. These are some things that are located in the soil. Okay, sorry. Okay, I'll stand back here. It's okay. Sand. These are components that you have in your soil. Sand, rocks, roots, leaves, larvae, twigs or wood pieces, of course, insects, and obviously worms. But on top of all those, you've got to have nutrients in your soil. And then you also have to have what they call macronutrients. And so carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen are found in the air and in the water. But that remains, the rest of the micronutrients have to be supplied by your soil or your fertilizer. And those are nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, calcium, magnesium, and sulfur. So that's a lot. So the first thing I want to say is, instead of guessing, do you have healthy soil? Why not take a soil test? Because you're going to have to buy fertilizer. Don't just buy fertilizer, it's expensive. Take a soil test and that will tell you, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about what it includes, so you know what kind of healthy soil you're dealing with. Because I don't know if you've bought any plants this year, but just like everything else, most things have gone way up. So you want to make sure you got the right healthy soil to grow those expensive plants. So what are the main components that a soil sample measures? Well, first of all, it's going to measure your pH. And your pH is going to show you how much acidity you have in your soil. And typically, North Carolina soil tends to be acidic. Most soils in the Southeast are acidic. So your pH is going to impact how nutrients are taken up by the plants. And different plants, as you know, if you know anything about gardening, have to grow at different pH levels. You know, blueberries versus your garden plants, for example. Another thing it tells you, it measures, is your phosphorus index. And phosphorus promotes root formation and growth, so you obviously need good phosphorus. Potassium helps plants overcome drought stress, and it also increases disease resistance. It will also tell you about lime. And one of the great things about it is it's going to give you a fertilizer recommendation, your NPK. Does everybody know what NPK stands for? Yes, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. So when you see that on the fertilizer bag, that's what they're talking about. And it's also important to remember when you do a soil sample that they do not measure nitrogen. Nitrogen is important, but the reason that the soil sample does not measure it is because it's very unstable in the soil, and it also leaches out. So what they do is they predict on the soil sample the nitrogen level you need for whatever you're taking the soil sample for. Does that make sense? Like if I was trying to grow blueberries, they would tell you what kind of nitrogen you need in terms of getting the soil where it needs to be. What else? Okay. The report will also tell you the type of fertilizer to use based on your sample. So let's just say my report said you need a 8-0-24, 8 being the nitrogen, 0 representing the phosphorus, and then the 24 being the potassium. If I go to the store and say, well, I need, I've got a real small area, say that I measured, real small garden, and they tell me at the store, well, we only have a 50-pound bag. Well, that would last me 10 years. But the good thing about this is when you get your soil sample, they will have down at the bottom, they will have the different, I think it's A through ABCD or something like that, 4 or 5 different groups. My fertilizer, let's just say my fertilizer was in group A. There's also 3 or 4 other fertilizers listed there that would do the same thing. So what I do is take my soil sample in. I know the area that I surveyed, and I'm going to need the fertilizer. And I just take it in and say, I need 8-0-24. And if he comes back and says, well, all we have is a 50-pound bag, then I say, well, can I use any of these other ones? And invariably, you come up with something that's like 10 pounds or 5 pounds. So that's a great thing that they give you choices. And anybody local in the area that sells fertilizer should know. Ace, I'm not connected to any of these people, but Ace Hardware, Southern States up in Carthage, even the shops down in Aberdeen, the BBC, they will know, and they deal with that all the time. But it's a good thing just to take your soil sample with you when you go, in case you don't need a 50-pound bag. So that's a good thing. There are also bar graphs on the soil report that will tell you, like they're labeled below optimum or above optimum. So if your pH is equal to 6.6, you can just compare that to the graph to say, well, my pH is very, very low, or it's very, very high. So that just kind of gives you, a good range, which is very helpful as well. Because some plants like azaleas and blueberries prefer very acidic soils with a 5.5 or 5.0, and then you may have vegetables that need to be up at 6 or 6.5. So I brought a collection box to show you today, and I've got some examples back there. This is what the collection box looks like if you're going to take a soil sample. And I'm going to really give you some kind of good tips on that. You can get them and the paperwork up at the Ag Center. It's free. There's a lot of good people up there that can help you with that. The test is free from April to Thanksgiving. And then from December to March, it costs $4. I think that's maybe, I don't know, because they're a little bit busier with the farmers or whatever. And then once you file, they'll come from Raleigh. They have representatives that come down and pick it up from the Ag Center. So once you take your sample, you just take it back up to the Ag Center. It'll be labeled and everything, and they send a representative down from Raleigh who will pick it up free of charge, and then you will get an email, which you would have placed on your paper information. If you don't do email, I think that they will mail you a report. You just have to let them know up front that, hey, I don't do email and I need for you to mail it. So this is what the box looks like. I put it together. It comes flat. You'll put your name and address on here, and at the bottom it has a little sample ID. I mean, don't get freaked out over that. What that is just to identify for you where you're taking your sample. For example, if I was going to take a soil sample in my front yard and my backyard, I would do two separate samples. And my ID for my backyard would just be a B in the word yard. So backyard, just so I know when I got my report, it's going to be labeled like that, and I would know, what it is. So that's pretty simple. They also have a soil testing pamphlet that you can get up there. Again, it's free. And then they have the form that you fill out just with your name and address. And you look on the back and they'll tell you, use one of these planting codes. So if I'm doing my azaleas or camellia, I will put the code in that they tell me. And that's just to help them determine the nitrogen and everything that needs to go in. So it's not rocket science. It's really, really very, very easy. And if you have a problem, like I said, somebody up at the Ag Center can help you. Or if you're over here at the center and you run into a master gardener out in the garden, we'd be glad to help you. So just a couple of tips on collecting a soil sample. You want to collect your samples with stainless steel or chrome-plated tools. And also, they recommend that you use a plastic bucket. Both the tools and the bucket need to be clean. I mean, don't try to use, if you'd see my buckets at home, anyway, I do wash them out once in a while. But if I had just happened to be using a bucket and I had, leftover fertilizer residue in it, that's going to affect your sample. So you want to make sure that your tools and also your plastic bucket that you're using is clean so it doesn't contaminate the sample. You want to avoid taking samples from areas that are obviously different from the norm. And by that, I mean, you don't want to sample where there's a big wet spot. You don't want to sample where there's a compost pile. And you definitely don't want to sample where there's like an animal urine spot. I know that sounds but that's what the book said. Anyway, you want to remove all large pieces of organic matter, such as roots or stalks or leaves. You just need to think about, you want it as clean sample as you can get, because everything you put in there is going to affect the soil test. If you're using a trowel or a spade, what you want to do is dig a hole and then take a slice of soil and repeat that procedure 5 to 8 different spots. So you take a sample here, you take a sample there, over there, and then what you're going to do is put those samples into your bucket and stir it up. So you basically got a good composite or a good representation of what's going on in the area. Once you place the soil in the box, you label that box that I showed you, and again, you put that ID on there so you'll be able to, determine where your soil sample is coming from. And then finally, don't tape the box, especially women. I know the dirt's going to come out or it's going to make a mess. They're used to that. They have a little line on the box that tells you how much dirt to put in there. And so just make sure you close it up tightly and label it, and that's all you need to do. So 3 strong reasons why you need to take a soil sample. It ensures you're providing healthy soil for your plant growth. It can diagnose a problem if you have unhealthy plants or vegetables. It can help you with that. And then also, like I said before, it saves you money on fertilizer if it's not needed, which is also good for the environment. So the question might be, how many times do I take a soil sample? Well, the soil sample test report, again, indicates the pH and the nitrogen levels that are in range needed for the plants to be grown. So you may not need a soil sample every year. Our garden out there, the therapeutic garden, is thriving right now. To be honest, we probably could have left off the fertilizer for this year because the plants are it looks like a jungle. But I was just taught to do a soil sample, so I did. But if your plants are doing well and everything's growing well, you you don't have to do it every year unless you just feel like you want to see, how the soil is doing. But as a rule, according to the Master Gardener Handbook, sandy soils should be tested every 2 to 3 years, and clay soils should be tested every 3 to 4 years. Of course, if you take a soil sample and you come back and, it's a pretty bad soil sample, if that were me, I would take one again next year, because you're going to try to amend the soil and you want to make sure that your amendments are doing what they're supposed to. So that kind of gives you a range of when you should do it. And I thought it might be interesting, I took the nitrogen, the phosphorus, and the potassium, because that's kind of some of the main ingredients. And let's just say your nitrogen is not good in your soil. What's going to happen is you're going to have slowed down plant growth. You're going to have yellowing of leaves. You're going to have a reduction in size of the leaf blade. All those things could really injure what you're trying to grow. Also, the phosphorus will also slow down plant growth. You might have purple-violet coloring of the leaves and stems, which is not supposed to be there, depending on the plant. The leaves get real stiff, rotting of the leaves at the very end, and importantly, poor flowering of flowers and formation of seeds. So here you've spent all this money, and then you're not going to have good plants. And then finally, potassium, it also affects plant growth. Your plants will wilt, falling away of leaves and rotting of stems, and the deformation of plants. So just with those three nutrients, if they're out of balance, you're not going to get very successful plants. Let's see what else. That's kind of all I have on the soil sampling, but I did want to tell you that we do have the handouts out there. I brought some Master Gardener helpline cards again. We had dropped some off in March, so I'm not sure if everybody's aware, but they do have a helpline. It's open from Monday to Friday, from 10 to 12. You can call up there and say, hey, I've got a problem, don't really know what to do. You can bring in your diseased plant if you so desire, or if you just have a question about something. If they don't know, they'll research it and get back to you. So that's kind of a nice, free resource. You should be using it if you're not. I also brought some of the soil test pamphlets and the submission form that you have to fill out, and also some of the boxes. I probably didn't bring it up for everybody, but again, you can pick one up at the ACT Center free of charge if you're interested. And finally, Lynn mentioned our restored therapeutic garden out there. I talked in March a long time about that, and also a friend of mine that was here did as well. So I'm not going to repeat a lot of stuff, but I just would encourage you, if you're here, just to walk through the garden. I don't know how you feel about it, but it just kind of brings me a peace when I'm out there. There's a little bench out there you can sit. It's probably a little too hot right now, but one of the new things that we added due to a grant that we got is an elevated wooden plant box, and we planted some herbs in that. So if you feel inclined to take a little piece of basil or whatever, feel free to do that. I mean, this garden is definitely for people who, well, anybody really, but, particularly for people who frequent the SEC Center. You just really receive a lot of benefits here or anywhere in nature just from walking and sitting. And I saw a cute sign come up on my phone that said, it's okay to talk with the plants because they understand. And so I'm just here to tell you, if you're out there and you're sitting on the bench by yourself and I walk by and you're out there talking, no judgment here. So we enjoy working out there. We enjoy people stopping by and just, talking to us, giving us ideas. We're always open to ideas, and really just enjoying the plants. So I encourage you to do that. There's also, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't kind of highlight some of the other nice gardens here in the areas you may or may not know about. So over in Southern Pines at the library, it's a fairly new garden. It's called Books and Bees. It's right sort of to the front of the garden, but there's a nice little garden over there you can visit. I don't think Catherine Schumer, who is in charge of that, and of course the master gardeners work there as well. I don't think there's a bench out there, but if you're visiting the library, just go by. I mean, there's some interesting plants out there to see. The Southern Pines Library, and it's right out front to the side. You can't really miss it. Also, I mentioned the flag up at the Ag Center. Larry, that's going to be talking next, heads up that garden, and all the master gardeners work there, but it's all native. Beautiful garden in the circle out there that you go around. It's been a work in progress for how long, Larry? Have been working all 11 years. Things die, you replace, but anyway, it's a beautiful garden. There's the side of the First Health Fitness Center, and it's called the Pinehurst Greenway Wildlife Habitat. Master gardeners primarily work over there, and that's a beautiful place. And then you can walk down. You can up to the side of the First Health Fitness Center and see it, and then walk on if you so desire. Oh, it is? Okay.
You're going in and out and in and out and in and out.
Probably me
So,
moving. So
yeah, I don't know if it's that or the batteries are running low.
okay.
Okay.
How's that? Is that better? Okay, cool. Pinehurst Greenway. Yeah. And then there's one at the Clara McLean House, First Health. If you don't know where that is, if you know where Pinehurst Surgical, it's in that area where Pinehurst Surgical is over here in Pinehurst, but there's a beautiful home. It's called Clara McLean, and there's a garden in back of that. I think to see that, you have to go in and let them know that you're coming to visit the garden, but it's absolutely gorgeous. There's a hospice garden, if you don't know about that, right out here on 15501. And then last but not least, Sand Hill Community College. I have lived here for years. I'm now pretty involved in some of the things that go on over at Sand Hill Community College. They have 32 acres back there. And they also do garden tours. You can call and get on the tour. I think they take like 10 or 15 people at a time. But there is so many interesting, I think take my grandkids over there and do the walk, and, we talk about birds and all that sort of stuff. So it's kind of cool. Yes, they do a plant sale. There used to be one in the spring and the fall of every year. So anyway, so you have no excuse for good gardens to see and good areas to go. It's just good for your blood pressure. It's good for de-stressing. And just remember what I said, you go out there and talk to the plants, and it's all good. So I am going, is there any questions? I'll try to answer. Okay. Okay. Yes. Oh, my husband, and he's the one that volunteers for this stuff sometimes. Yeah, we just bought it online. I'm trying to think. I think it's called Gardener's Supply. Yes. I mean, it would be nice if the whole garden was elevated like that sometimes, but because we all kind of develop knee problems and back problems. But it's Gardener's Supply. You can, yes. So, and I really do encourage you. I mean, if you want to take a snip or whatever, what we're hoping to do out there in the future is we're going to try it this year. We're going to collect seeds, and so hopefully share them with people here. And Janice is going to actually talk about herbs today and how you can freeze them and whatever. So that's going to be a real timely thing. The only thing I will say about it is we do have to come over a lot more in water. You may be able to buy them that they're self-watering. I probably should have looked at that because we water manually out there. But it's only during the summer that, it's like that. So yes, thank you for making that comment. Thank you. Okay. Mm-hmm. Oh, about 4 inches. I think that it might be deeper than that for crops. Do you know, Larry? I'd have to look, but 4 inches is, pretty good. Yeah.
And that was the same for like, I'm saying we used to kind of
Yes, same thing. Yes, yes. Mm-hmm. And that brings up a good point. I'm pretty sure that the soil sample will also tell you if you need to add fertilizer or whatever you need to add, it will tell you the times of year to do it. And I don't know how many people in here knew Taylor Williams, who was our ag agent for 100 years. I don't know. He was great. That man, I mean, if I could have just had a tenth of his brain, I would have just been a genius. But I guess depending on what kind of soil, but investigate that because he was always telling us, get your potash. You got to put your potash out on your grass just because of the sand and, the type of soil we have. It's kind of good. So anybody else? Any other questions? Mm-hmm. Oh, well, I mean, I would. It kind of gives you what your soil is made out of. Yeah, I would definitely go down to that 4 inches. So, anyway, any other questions? I know that's not like a real exciting topic, but it really is important information that you need to know, particularly if you're going to be growing a garden or flowers. So, thank you for your time. Oh, I need to introduce Larry. Come on up, Larry. Larry is a real good friend, and also he's been a master gardener a lot longer than I have, and he's got one of those brains that just, oh, sorry.
Yeah, I have less than 10% of Taylor's brain. So.
But he's Larry, geez. He's going to talk about vermiculture today. So he's been doing that for how long, Larry?
Maybe 6 years now.
6 years. Okay, so I'm kind of interested. I've heard it a little bit before, but I need to learn a little bit more. So, Larry, let you have it.
Take this off.
Okay.
I taught at Sandhills for 35 years, and I can't stand still, so I'm going to have to carry this mic. But I did not teach vermiculture at Sandhills. I taught English at Sandhills. But a few years back, about 6 or 8 years ago, a friend who is in the Master Gardener program had a worm farm that he had to get rid of. He had to keep it under his house. His wife wouldn't let him keep it in the house. So he put it in the crawl space, and as he got older, he couldn't crawl under there anymore. So he said, he found out that I was kind of interested in a worm farm, so he said, you want my farm? And I said, sure. So I got his farm, and it wasn't this one. This is still at my house. But very quickly, the worms were so happy at my house that they outgrew that farm, had to buy another farm. So now I have 2, which I keep in my house in an air-conditioned, heated space, but in a room off the garage that I don't go into much. So that makes it work. But I don't know how much you all know about worm composting. But many of you, if you're into gardening, you probably have a compost pile outside already, maybe. But this is a much easier way to get scraps. Don't have to turn it. Don't have to do anything except grind them up in your Ninja and toss them in the top. Cover them up with some covering. And when we finish, I understand you get a bathroom break after I talk. So I want everybody kind of parade by here and check out the inside of the worm farm. It's really amazing. You may not know that Charles Darwin, the famous author of The Origin of Species, ended his life. The last thing he wrote was a book on worms, and he studied them for 38 years. He thought worms were the most important creatures that had ever been on Earth because they basically create soil. That's their job. They're found on all the continents on Earth except for Antarctica, which I don't have to explain that. And they've been here since well before the dinosaurs. Some people say 500 million years. They've been here that long. There are over 6,000 species, depending on how you count them. I've seen a figure of 9,000. I don't know where they got that number, but I see 6,000 a lot. And but there are only a very few, that are suitable for vermiculture. And the reason for that is most worms of the 6,000 species, most of them are really subterranean. They dig. They're diggers. There are about 6 species that live right on what they call the forest floor, the litter floor border. They live right under the leaf layer, but on the very top of the soil. And they have a name for that. They're called epigeic worms. And the most famous worm of all time, the red wiggler, is the most often used for vermicomposting. And it has a scientific name, Icenia fetida is the scientific name for the red wiggler. It's also a very famous fishing worm. But if you decide you want to do this, don't go to the bait shop to buy your worms. I'll get to that in a minute. Okay, so basically a worm can eat and process approximately 1/3 of its body weight in bacterial compostable material per day. 1/3 of its weight. So what happens in my worm farm, basically I have maybe 1,000 worms in there, and it's set up like this. It's a layered system. And I have 2 of them right now. I just got 20 pounds of vermicompost last week. And I'll talk about how wonderful it is in a minute. So basically all I do is I keep stacking these until the worms keep coming up to the top, because you put the food in the top. Put the food in the top, and of course, like everything, they go to where the food is, right? So they keep coming up to the top. So when I get about 4 of these stacked up, I pull the top 3 off, and the bottom layer is about 2/3 full of the most beautiful compost you've ever seen in your life. It's black gold. It's magical. I'll talk about the chemical formula in a minute. So, I just dump it out, start all over, put another layer on, and the top layer is the most important. Basically, what you do is you take your food scraps. I just keep mine in a Tupperware container in the fridge. I've got a big Tupperware container, and whenever I'm making anything vegetable matter, chop it up, throw the leftovers in the Tupperware, what's not edible for me. And then about maybe once a week, I just throw it in the Ninja, shred it to bits, take it out, put it in the worm farm, cover it over with what they call a bedding material. I'll talk about that in a minute, and go back in. I spend less than 10 minutes a week on this hobby. I call them my pets. They make perfect fertilizer for me. They don't bark at night. They don't scratch up my furniture. They eat the stuff I couldn't eat anyway. I don't have to go to buy them anything. I don't buy them any food. I just give them my leftovers. Okay, what can you feed them? Basically, you don't want to put anything meat or oil in here, not because they wouldn't or couldn't eat it, but because it'll attract flies to your worm farm. So you don't want to do that. One type of vegetable, one family of vegetables that they don't like is the allium family, onions and garlic. They just don't like it. I don't know. How can you not like garlic? But anyway, they're worms. They got very small brains. So I don't feed them that, but almost anything else they're good with. Coffee grounds, tea leaves, all that stuff. Yeah, they'll eat anything. Huh? Well, I think, yeah, you can throw it in a compost pile outside. Here's the problem with the worm. It has no teeth, okay? And it just basically has a mouth that kind of protrudes out and grabs tiny little particles of bacteria and food. And now you can throw it in there whole. You can throw a whole lettuce leaf in there, but it'll still be there 2 weeks later, just a little smaller. But if you grind it up, they can go through it faster, which means they make more compost for you faster. So that's why I grind mine up. Plus, I already own a Ninja. I didn't have to buy anything. So you grind it up and you put it in there, and then you have some kind of bedding. Now, what can you use for bedding? Well, the cheapest thing is your leftover pilot newspaper. I mean, after you've read it, what are you going to do, right? So you basically tear it in little strips. You'll see the strips when you come up here. Tear it in little strips, throw it in a bucket, get it wet, pull it out of the bucket, wring it out. You want your bedding to be moist, but not wet, not dripping wet. Now, if you don't want to use newspaper, and 50 years ago, I wouldn't use newspaper because back then they used inks that were toxic. Now they're using inks that are vegetable based, and worms love vegetables, right? So they're fine. So newspaper's fine. Colored print newspapers still fine. And so I have lots of newspapers, so that's what I use. But you can use peat moss. You can use dried up shredded leaves. You can use coconut coir. Just about anything that will cover them that you can keep moist. Now, they need to stay moist for a very important reason. They absorb, their skin has to remain moist. If it dries out, they die. You've seen dead worms on the asphalt. In fact, right now they seem to be crossing the road at my house. So, and they usually don't make it. So they have to stay moist, but not wet. They will drown, so you don't want it wet. You'll get an idea of the moisture level when you stop by here and look at it. But they don't have eyes. They don't have teeth. They don't really have ears. But they're pretty simple creatures. But they do have 5 hearts. Well, they're not 4-chambered magnificent hearts like ours. They are just basically little valves, and they're up near the head of the worm. And basically, it takes 5 little pumps to send the blood all the way down the length of the worm. But they're incredibly interesting creatures. But they'll eat almost anything. Rachel Carson pointed out in her book way back in the 60s that they detoxify the soil as well. They eat PCBs and terrible chemicals. They'll run it right through their system. It comes out in your compost pile. It's not even the same anymore. Completely changes the chemical composition of them. Many places in the United States are now setting up these very large vermicomposting stations to take care of sewage. And this woman, Rhonda Sherman, who's at NC State, she is the foremost expert on the planet in vermicomposting and municipal vermicomposting. And this book is full of examples of places. She's been all over the world, Afghanistan, and every place you can imagine, teaching people in rural areas how to make their dirt a lot better with vermicompost. And you can have there are some very sophisticated systems. In California, there are entire municipalities, all their garbage goes through a vermicomposting setup, which Rhonda Sherman set up for them. So she's an amazing woman and knows more about this than anyone. Literally has written the book on it. So basically, that's the reason I do it is very simple. It's an easy way for me to amend my garden. I don't have a huge garden. I just live in the burbs like most people. And but I do have house plants that I like. And I can't tell you the last time I bought fertilizer. Betty was talking about how expensive it is. Once you buy your composter, somebody gives you one, and you probably will have to buy 1,000 worms to start something like this. But you can get fully farming. You can become a full verma farmer for about $100. This will cost you $50. 1,000 worms will cost you $50. You're ready to go. But there are several reputable dealers. There are some unreputable dealers. She mentions that in here. Make sure you get the right worm. She said some unreputable dealers will say the wrong worm. You want red wigglers, Icenia fetida. That's the scientific name. That's what you want. They'll send you a pound. They cost 40 to 50 bucks. They'll mail them to you. When they first get here, they are very excited about getting out of their mailer. So make sure that when you put them in your bin, you have a big light right here so they stay in the bin. Because if they get out of the bin, they're going crazy. And they don't like light. They don't like light. So, in fact, when you come up here, if I open this, they'll all scour down to the bottom because light dries out their skin. And they can't survive that because they have to stay moist. That's the key. They have to stay moist. So in this little setup, they stay moist. And basically, it's a layered system, 3 of these. And the top layer is the food layer. And by the time it gets about 3 layers high, there are no worms left in the bottom layer, so you can just harvest it that way. It works great. So that's the long and the short of it. Now, of the setup. Now, Betty was talking about all the requirements of healthy soil, nitrogen, phosphorus, NPK, and all those micronutrients she mentioned. Worm castings has all of those micronutrients, all of them. And they even convert difficult nitrogen like phosphorus/nitrogen into sodium nitrogen, which plants seem to absorb much more readily than the other kind of nitrogen. In fact, there's a very famous, let's see if I have a picture of it in here. Rhonda Sherman, many years ago, was doing an experiment, and she got a grant to study runoff, and she was studying the runoff of compost. So she used vermicompost in her study. And she said, well, they were measuring the, water ran off and how much fast it ran off and how much more water it held with the compost than before. But she said, we just decided we'd stick a few plants in there just to see what happened. And I know you can't see this. I wish I had a slide. But these are 3 turnips. All 3 turnips had the same nitrogen in the bed. This turnip had no vermicast, the tiny turnip, no vermicast. The middle turnip had 10% vermicast. The big turnip had 20% vermicast. Look, it's 4 times bigger. That's the only difference. That's real science. You have one variable, and the variable this time was worm poop. What a deal. So, that's what it is. They take it in one end, comes out the other, and then it's your new soil. Yes, ma'am. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah. You just pass the book around if you want. Okay, so why would you not want to get into? Yeah, I'm sorry, Ginger. Go ahead. Castings. Yeah, that's what comes out of the end of the worm after the worm does its eating thing. Okay, so basically the worm's little mouth grabs a piece of shredded chow and pulls it into a kind of gizzard. And it goes down the path of its intestine into the gizzard, and there it's processed, and then it goes right on at the end of the worm. Okay, that's called worm castings. And once they do that, it just basically, in this system, it basically just falls through here down to a layer below. And they keep eating. And eventually, of course, this one will begin to fill up, so then I have to add another layer. But if you buy a worm farm, they send you about 4 of these. It's basically 4 of these and a lid. That's all it is to it. And yes.
So the worms are healthy, they're thriving.
Oh yeah, they're rock stars.
Are they reproducing?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
So I don't have to keep buying worms.
Oh, no, 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 no. You'll have the opposite problem. Now, here's a good thing. Unlike human beings, they seem to know what the carrying capacity of their environment is. And so their reproduction slows down greatly once they get crowded in there. So they'll take care of that themselves. You don't have to worry about that. They're smarter than us in that way. But yeah, worm dies. Just the other ones that eat it, it just decomposes. And I mean, I never see any dead ones in here. Yeah, they'll live about a year to 2 years out there. They'll live about 4 years here. Well, it depends. Sometimes you find them in your soil. If you find them near the surface of the soil, they're very likely red wigglers around here. But red wiggler is not a native worm to North America. It was brought here. But unlike a lot of worms that are non-native and escape into the wild, they don't tend to make any problems. There are worms that are considered invasive because, fishermen have thrown them out somewhere like the Great Lakes and they don't belong there. So they begin to disrupt the soil up there. But that's another story. And I'm running out of time already. Okay, well, it depends on what I'm doing. Like for my house plants, I take basically 2 tablespoons of castings. I don't want to call it worm poop, but castings, and put it in a quart of water and just shake it up real well and pour water with it. Now for my plants in my garden, basically it depends on how big they are. Am I ready to, so I can side dress it with that. Here's the great thing about worm castings. There's no way you can mess it up. There's nothing in it. I mean, there's not enough nitrogen in it to burn anything. And everything else in it is almost already at exactly the proportion you would want if you were mixing up chemicals. It's really incredible. Even boron, which is a micronutrient, like 1/10 of a part per million. It's got the right amount of boron in it. How'd they figure that out? I don't know. But it's amazing. So another question I get sometimes from people who say, well, I would go into that, but I'm afraid it would stink. It doesn't stink. It might be poop, but it doesn't stink. And pass that around. It doesn't smell bad at all. I have one of my good friends is John Bowman. He keeps his worm farm in the kitchen at his house. Doesn't smell. Right in the kitchen. So anyway, it's possible to do that. Okay. I'm about to run out of time here. Are there any questions, anything I could answer for you that I haven't or haven't covered or? That's actual worm cat. That's right out of this box. Yeah. Now. Yeah. 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 It's damp at the bottom. Yeah. Uh-huh. Oh yeah. I have bought things in the past from a place called Uncle Jim's Worm Farm, and that's a reputable place. Uncle Jim's Worm Farm. They have these, and they have worms. They'll send you the worms. But somewhere Midwest. Yeah. And that's not local. I'm sorry. Other questions? Okay. Well, if you all want to swing by here and check out the worm farm, you can all become farmers for under $100.
Thank you, Larry.
I gotta have to turn it off first.
Okay, if everyone wants to take a little bit of a restroom break or go and visit one of the vendors, let's see. It is 1 o'clock on the dot. So if you want to take like 10 minutes and come on back, then we will hear the second part of the program, and then we'll give away the wonderful door prizes. So thank you very much, and we'll see you in a few. Like that with the lights on and off? That's an old Broadway trick when I used to go to some Broadway shows at Rockefeller Center. So we are moving on to the next part of our program, and this microphone is cutting out. So annoying. Anyway, so I am going to be introducing Janice Roberts. Do I have everybody's attention? We're going to be starting the second part of the program. If everybody can pay attention, and there we go. It's so much nicer. As we get older, our ears are harder to manipulate hearing. So when several conversations are going on at once, it's very difficult. So I want to make sure everybody can hear. So Janice is here. She's got a little baby in her belly, as you can see. So we're going to make her life easy. And so thank you very much for coming today, Janice, and here you go.
All right, thank you. I do have I don't think it's a little baby. It feels very big. I'm 37 weeks today, so the countdown is on. Another girl in our office, she was due after me, but her water broke today. So we're just happy to be here, trying to make it through. And I am a family consumer science agent with the Cooperative Extension here in Moore County, and my specialty is talking about nutrition and food safety. So keeping up with the garden theme, some of our programming, we're used to teaching people, go to the store and buy this. But community gardens are becoming more popular. We have a great Master Gardener program. So more people are starting to want to grow their own food. And I've been practicing for several years now, still not good at it. But the mentality of going to my garden to get food versus my pantry or the store has been something that's been different and challenging for me. And so that's kind of what inspired this presentation that I did as a lunch and learn at the county office in March. I do encourage you to reach out to Cooperative Extension. It's one of those things where I want you to call us and contact us and come by and see us, but also don't get mad. We're going to be on skeleton crew this summer. Our horticulture agent left in March, so her position's not been filled. Our admin will be out for a little while because she's having her baby. I will be out at some point in time pretty soon. Our 4-H agent will be gone on camps. So there's only going to be a few people trying to run the place. So please contact us, but also be patient because we're not standing on all our legs. But these are some of the things that I wanted to talk about is just the disconnect that people have, that shoppers have now. Like I've done a lot of 4-H camps and I've taken kids to stores and given tours there. I do a camp called Farm to Fork. Not this year. No camps this year. But going to the garden, trying to help people understand that food does not come from the grocery store. It had to get there at some point, it had to be grown somewhere. And I'm sorry for the breathlessness. It is crowded. So, like I said, I talk about food safety. So talking about some of the foodborne illnesses, some of the produce safety challenges. There's a lot of consumer information out there. A lot of people do not trust the food system here in America. And just some steps to take to keep things nice and clean and safe. All right, so how many of you have ever lived off your land and used the store to supplement your food? Anybody? Okay, I figured I'd get a few hands, but not a lot. So that was a question I had. I was like, how long has it been? How many people should I expect to actually have had that kind of life where they grew their own food and just got a few things at the store? Chickens, yeah. And just on that note, if you want backyard chickens, Store-bought eggs are cheaper. So I do have chickens. Mine are for bugs. I haven't had issues with ticks since I got chickens, so I will maintain having chickens for that sole reason. They're entertaining. I like looking outside. But a recent survey said that only 24% of U.S. adults have a high degree of trust in the information they receive about how their food is grown and how it is produced. And I even hear it when we have had camps, the kids are starting to repeat it. Oh, this has chemicals, this is processed. So they're repeating the language, but they don't know what it means. And from the consumer side and teaching, like I'll teach food labels. Majority of the ones you see at the store are meaningless. They're there just to get you to buy them. Like antibiotics in chicken, they're not given antibiotics anyway. But every pack of chicken you will find says no antibiotics used. Meaningless label. So the people are worried about chemicals and whether or not it's organic. GMO, there's only 9 GMO foods in existence that's in our food system. Growth hormones, pesticides, pollution, animal welfare, and like I said, processed foods, sustainable farming practices. There's all kinds of things that people believe and that you run into. And that's one of the reasons that people are wanting to grow gardens. But our food system is very elaborate. There's a lot of things that go into it. There's political influence, environmental influences. Sorry, I will take breathers every once in a while. Social and economic influences. But this is pretty much, you got your food production on the farm. It's got to be carried somewhere. We have several distribution and aggregation centers throughout North Carolina. It might be processed and then marketed, purchased, at your table, prepped and consumed, and then start using our worms with resource and waste recovery. So food is considered processed after you wash it. So if you really want to be sassy and technical about it, any food that you have washed, like if you wash your pepper before you chop it, that is a food. But it's defined by the USDA as any raw agricultural commodity that has been washed, cleaned, milled, cut, chopped, heated, pasteurized, and all sorts of things. And it may include adding preservatives or flavors or nutrients. But remember, preservatives, salt, sugar, some fats. So it's not that you wouldn't add yourself. Because I add salt and sugar to certain foods. But, everybody's like, oh, it's got preservatives in it. It's salt. So it's not something that is to be concerned about. And some of those things have safety components to it, like sugar and jam. Like we wouldn't cut down the amount because jam, when you make it homemade, half fruit, half sugar, really. Like 8 cups of sugar. It's outrageous, but there's a safety component. It's not just flavor. So when did we stop growing our own food? In 1916, Clarence Saunders opened the first self-service grocery store called Piggly Wiggly. Anybody shopped there before? Yeah. So he led the way with the store in Memphis, Tennessee. And it was not until the mid-1920s when the first chain stores began to appear that people in America stopped growing their own food and in their own gardens and fully embraced the convenience of shopping for food instead. And I don't blame them, not one bit. So how do we start shopping your own garden? One, we're going to start a garden. Like I said, I've been practicing for years. I do have a bit of beginner's luck, but that has seemed to run out. So you got to learn about healthy soils, so call on master gardeners, and reduce potential contaminants and handle food safely. So one of your handouts, the food safety and garden health, will talk about some of those contaminants. I won't get too elaborate, but you do have to be careful with some of the materials you use for raised beds, like railroad ties. They can have chemicals that will leach into your soil. So you got to be careful with that. Certain metals can leach into your soil. So you would do soil tests to see what amendments might need to be made. All right, now foodborne illness in the U.S. Yeah, we have a lot of great specialists at NC State. Dr. Ben Chapman is the one who kind of leads the way with consumer food safety. And I'm sure he's responsible for a graphic like that. So 48 million cases of foodborne illness a year, about 127,000 hospitalizations and 3,000 deaths. So it can be very serious. There are populations that are more susceptible. One of the things I teach is food protection manager classes. So anyone that's preparing food, whether it's in a restaurant or at a hot dog cart or in the schools, they have to have food safety training. Not everyone, just one person per shift. Somebody's got to know what they're doing. But some of the populations that are more susceptible are going to be the young, so the really young that are developing their immune systems. Older immune systems are breaking down. So that can also be another population. Pregnant, we've got some things we got to watch out for. And immunocompromised, so anybody who's had their immune system knocked out, like with cancer treatment, are obviously going to be more susceptible. So all the rules that restaurants have to follow are geared to providing safe food for those populations. And food safety is very subjective. It's, everybody's immune system is different. Everybody's immune system can handle different things. But with produce, some of the things, the more the sprouts and the food safety team in NC State is all about, I don't eat sprouts. Because it's just the perfect growing environment for a lot of bacteria. And then leafy greens, they're more susceptible because of how they're grown out in the fields. And, a lot of times you're not cooking those. There's not a, so that's how they can be, cause a little more trouble. But for the most part, that's going to take up most of your produce outbreaks. So the reason produce can be challenging is because it is consumed raw. A lot of times you're not cooking everything, especially your lettuce, strawberries, blueberries, you're always going to want those raw. And then bacteria can multiply on produce surfaces and in fruit wounds. So you want to make sure you're growing really nice produce that does not have any issues with it, which is also not easy. And contamination is often sporadic. So it can happen from humans. The majority of the foodborne illness is because people who are preparing food are not washing their hands appropriately after they use the bathroom. So I will not elaborate on that, but most of them, that's how it's happened. Some soil can cause issues using contaminated water. So making sure you have a safe water source to water your produce. Buildings, equipment, tools, you got to keep your tools sanitized. There's a lot of stuff in gardening they don't tell you about. But I think Betty talked about having fertilizer residue on her bucket. You don't want that on your produce that you're not cooking and, feeding that in a salad. So keeping everything clean. And then, of course, animals. So I've got chickens, they're right in the garden. So that's becoming a flower garden part because you just never know. And deer, a lot of the contamination, like E. coli, comes from digestive systems of cows or deer. And when that gets on your leafy greens, because you can't control them, that's how you can get some of those E. coli contaminations. So you're continuing from farm to fork. You got your raw produce, you harvest it, and then you got to store and consume and be safe at all of those levels. So making sure you're keeping contaminants out, keeping everything you're using while harvesting and storing clean and sanitized, using safe soil amendments. There's different requirements for that compost. So you want to make sure you have a safe source, but also that it has been cooked essentially for a long enough period and having that safe water. So like I said, I was just trying to run through this kind of quickly. Make sure that your site, when you pick a garden site, is not prone to flooding or animal crossings, runoff from chemicals or metals if you've got a farm down the road. But the flooding, I don't think in the sandy soils you're going to have too much issue. Clay soils, we don't have the flooding, but it holds a lot of water. We get a lot of puddles. So use a tested water source. That way you're not introducing pathogens. Have your compost in a proper location and barriers to keep animals from getting in there. So depending on what you're putting in there, you might start attracting animals to it. Do not use animal feces in the compost. We don't want that. No animals. Another thing, in your food safety and garden health, it talks about some of the parasites. So one of those things is Toxoplasma gondii, and that one comes from kitties, some like kitty litter and cat feces. So if you have a cat, your neighbor has a cat, and they get in your garden at all, if you have anyone that's pregnant that's ever in your garden or using stuff like that, that's one of the ones that can cross the placenta and cause a miscarriage. So that's why, all right, time's up on this one. We want to keep our animals out. Any questions on that, please contact our master gardeners. And then keep everything sanitized as well. All right, and I'll end on this one. So I saw where a shopper cook goes to the store with a list of ingredients and goes home and makes their dish. And I would say majority of people, this is how they are these days, is you print off your list and you go shop. A gardener cook does it backward. So they start with ingredients and create from there. So it's more interactive and it's more challenging, but it does cause you to eat more seasonally. So I think it's something that everybody should start trying to do. And I lied. I think I'm going to go to the next slide. So something that you could consider doing is stuff that you don't find in your stores. One of the programs that we teach is the Med-Set Meds diet. And the research has shown that one of the reasons that's so effective is because people are eating more plants and vegetables. So the greater the variety that you're eating, the healthier you're going to be. Because you're also cultivating a garden in your digestive system. So some things I put on here is like kohlrabi, watermelon radish, Belgian endive, cardoons, things you're not going to find at the store. They're different, but it can be fun. It can be interactive and challenging, just the process, but something you can consider doing versus, like I've read, leave the commodities to the farmers, which would be potatoes and corn. I'll leave those to the farmers because I haven't figured that out yet. And corn just brings in the deer anyway. But I'll go ahead and get switched. And the raccoons. Yeah. All right, so we'll end on using and preserving culinary herbs. Kind of links back to your therapeutic garden since there's herbs out there. It also links back to health. It's a good, if you're starting a garden, these are good to start. Good plants to start. Some come back every year, some you got to plant every year. So hopefully if they do their seed harvesting, they can show you which ones are annuals and that you need the seeds from. All right, so there's lots of culinary herbs, and you can kind of group them into two groups. Your delicate herbs, like your basil, chive, cilantro, dill, mint, and parsley. And then your sturdy herbs are going to be oregano, rosemary, sage, and thyme. So they can get a woody stem, and they're going to come back year after year. As well as mint. Mint you will plant and it'll stay and it'll take over. And pretty much anything that's in the mint family. And there's lots of uses and benefits to using culinary herbs. So at this point, some of you are probably watching something in your diet. I went to High Point University, and they talk a lot about experiential learning. So some of the experiences I've had through pregnancy is my second one gave me high blood pressure. Third one fixed it, and right now I have diabetes. So it's been a nice little journey of experiential learning of what it's a day in the life of watching sugar or watching salt. But they add a lot of flavor without adding extra calories or salt. Salt is like the volume button, so it doesn't add any flavor. It just, whatever flavor is already there, it's going to turn it up. So be careful about adding too much of that. For the most part, as long as you're cooking at home, you've got control over it, and it's not as bad as if you went to a restaurant. They can get a little heavy-handed. Anything that's from the store is processed, like shelf-stable with salt in it. Those are a little heavy-handed. It can help you explore cultures. So I need to add that to my slides. And be creative. And they may provide some antioxidants that help protect against diseases such as cancer and heart disease. So there's not as much research on that. We know some things like cinnamon, which would be a spice. They've got more research behind them on what they provide. Okay, I'm back. So fresh herbs are generally the best for cooking. The only exception is going to be oregano. Oregano does better if it's dried. And if it's too strong of an herb for you, it has a cousin called marjoram that's a little bit milder. If you want to try that one. And when you cook with them, you want to add them at different times. So if it's sturdy, like that rosemary or sage, you might add it towards the beginning. But if it's really tender, you're going to do it towards the end, like last 20 minutes of cooking, or kind of as a garnish. So this is like a caprese dish, and it's one of my favorites. But it uses fresh basil with fresh tomatoes and fresh mozzarella and a balsamic glaze. And it's one of my favorite. So that's oregano. If you're going to use dried herbs instead of fresh, use half. It's going to be a little more potent because it's concentrated. And you would add them at the beginning of cooking. Do not double spices and herbs. So you would just start a little bit at a time and add as you go. So you can always add herbs and salt, but you cannot take it back out. So taste it as you go, add more if you need it. Now when you're harvesting your herbs, you want to do it in the morning. So after dew has dried, but before the heat of the day. So it does take some forethought and planning, because typically if I'm ready to harvest, they're like, oh, I need some time with rosemary. I'm trying to cook dinner in the moment, and it's in the afternoon, and it's been hot all day. So it's not like you can't use it. It's just not going to have the bright and best flavor. So another thing you want to watch for is if they have the flower heads. If you let it flower, they're going to start losing their flavor. So if you start seeing flowers coming up, start pinching them off if you want to keep growing that herb. And some of them, some herbs flower really quickly. Like cilantro is known for bolting. So you gotta keep your eye on that one. So all you would do is rinse in cold water to remove bugs, dirt, and debris before cooking. So we don't need any extra ingredients. And there's several ways you can store the herbs. So you would really just kind of treat it like a bouquet of flowers for the delicate herbs. And that's even if you buy it from the store. You can, like your mint, cilantro, parsley, I typically put it in a jar of water. And if I bought it from the store, I'll use the bag and just make a little greenhouse inside my refrigerator. The only one you don't want to do that with is going to be basil. Basil does not like cold, so you'll keep that one out on your counter, but still treat it like a bouquet of flowers. With your hardy herbs, you can keep them for 1 to 2 weeks by wrapping them in wet paper towels and putting them in a perforated bag, or just leaving the bag open like this. So preserving herbs, you might have more than what you were expecting, especially like with basil. If you treat it right, you can really get a big bush. If you like, what is it? Is it lemon verbena? Lemon balm. One of those. One of the lemon ones. Yes. It becomes quite prolific, and it makes a lot of babies. So in 1 year, half of my raised bed garden has become lemon balm. Mint will do that. Anything involved in the mint family. And on the back of the herb handout, it does mention which ones are in the mint family. So that's marjoram, all the different mints, oregano, rosemary is part of that family. Some are savory, and thyme. So, but I haven't had issues with thyme. Thyme's my favorite. So there's a few methods for drying. Some of you may not be from North Carolina, but not all methods are doable in North Carolina. So we've got air drying, an electric dehydrator, oven drying or sun drying, and then microwave drying or freezing. So with air drying, you would just use your less tender herbs. They're easily dried by simply tying them up in small bundles and hanging them. So like your rosemary, sage, and thyme. You do have to be careful. One thing you can do is you can tie them up in a bag like that and hang them that way. That way when the leaves dry, you catch them in the bag. But you do want to perforate it that way. It's got the air circulation. That's going to be important for it. Yeah, like a brown paper bag would be just fine. Remove any bruised, soiled, or imperfect leaves and stems and inspect for insects. Don't want to preserve those. And the reason that we don't want to do the air drying necessarily with the tender herbs, we do want it to be a little bit quicker. And they can have a lot of moisture and we don't want them to mold. So that's the issue with them. So their leaves and seeds may also fall off. And that's where using the paper bag can be very helpful. So all you're doing is just using warm, dry air. Now you can also use an electric dehydrator, and you can use it for other things in your home. So if you want to do fruits or vegetables, you have to be careful about mixing flavors, and it will use up electricity. So because you have to do it for several hours, the temperature needs to be between 95 and 110 degrees. You would place the stems on drying racks so that they do not touch, and do dry larger leaves separately. So you could also do sun drying, but we don't recommend that one indoors because of the humidity. It is just way too moist in the air for them to ever get to the dry level that they need to be. Because it does need to be a lower heat as well, so it doesn't destroy the flavors. Now, to do the oven drying, that can also be an issue because many ovens don't go that low in temperature. So really what you would end up doing is just turn on the oven light or the pilot light and leaving the door open a little bit. Use your oven and just use the light to dry herbs. Microwave drying is also an option. You would arrange and wash your dried herbs in like a single layer with some paper towels. Microwave on high for 2 to 3 minutes per cup. Start with 1 minute, mix after every 30 seconds, and continue checking for drying. So your microwave will need to be 1,000 or higher, or if it's has a wattage of 1,000 or higher, may heat too fast for this method. And it also can catch them on fire. So watch out for that. When you're testing for dryness, make sure that there's no mold growth and that they're crispy and they crumble on your fingers. Store like you would any other preserved food. Avoid exposing to air, heat, and light. Use airtight and vapor-proof containers to prevent herbs from absorbing moisture and air and also to kind of keep their fragrance to themselves. Because if you store them with other foods, those other foods can start smelling and tasting like those herbs. Cool, dark places like your cupboards, your pantry, not on top of a windowsill. You don't want them to have access to sunlight because that could decrease the potency and the aroma. So all of your herbs, even the ones that you buy at the store, you want to use those within a year for the best potency. Now, that doesn't mean I haven't had some in there for like 5 years or longer. But you want to judge it based off of the aroma, so you can kind of break it up in front of your nose. And if you can't smell it, you're not gonna taste it either. But you can still store them whole or crushed, but whole herbs are preferred because of their oils and they retain the flavor longer. So store them whole, and then if you want them crushed, just crush them beforehand. So some other ways of doing this that are probably going to be a little bit easier is to freeze herbs in oil or water. So you can just simply wash them, put them in an ice cube maker, and either pour some olive oil on them or some water and just freeze in little cubes. So that's more appealing to busy people like myself. You can tray freeze as well, removing the stems. Place them on all the leaves and sprigs on a baking sheet, cover with plastic wrap, and freeze, and then transfer to glass or plastic wrap. So label the bags with herb type, amount, and the date. Anytime you put something in the freezer, you want to use it within 3 to 6 months for best quality. Also, not following that rule in my freezer. But the quality is going to be the best during that time. When it comes to safety, as long as your food in your freezer has stayed frozen, that has not changed. It's still safe. But quality decreases over time. There's also ways of just preserving the flavor, not just the herb itself. So one thing you can do is make some flavored vinegars. So you just put a few sprigs of fresh herbs or 3 tablespoons dried herbs with some vinegars. The wine vinegars work really well. For delicate herbs, but they can have more bacteria or sugars for the bacteria to use. Always start with a sterilized jar for these. If you don't, it could get a little cloudy. Heat the vinegar to just below boiling and pour into the jars and let them stand in a cool, dark place and let flavors develop and blend. After about 3 to 4 weeks, you would strain it. So you wouldn't just leave the herbs in there indefinitely. You would strain them after the flavor has been developed. Now, this is one that's a little more food safety, is garlic and oil mixtures. So one of the reasons that this one is risky is for botulism. So is everybody familiar with that? Yeah, Clostridium botulinum, the toxin that it produces is one of the most deadly toxins to humans. So, and I see recipes online for this stuff all the time. I'm like, that's not safe. But if it's stored at room temperature, there's a risk for botulism. It should be made fresh and stored in the refrigerator and used within 4 days. If you want to keep it for longer, you would freeze it. So if you want to just strain the garlic oil and then use like the ice cube method of freezing it, then you can keep that flavor without wasting it, but not put yourself at risk. There's also herb mixes and salt, so to be continued. I can share with Lynn another handout for some of these for making some of your herb mixes. You can also make compound butters. So mix them into a butter and then start cooking that way. And I'm not supposed to promote butter usage from the nutrition standpoint, but there's fat-soluble vitamins that you need fat used to get the benefit from foods. And then you can also use for pestos and sauces. And if you make any sort of recipe, whether it's salsa or pesto, you can freeze that and use it later. So I'll go ahead and stop here if there's any questions. Hardest question. Herb, white herb. I don't know. I hate to be that annoying person, especially with 3 weeks away. But I've had two names on my list for a long time, Clark and Declan. And I just had a feeling I'd die if I didn't have a Declan. But I've got a husband too, and he has opinions. So have not been discussing it. It'll be Clark or Declan, but I don't know which one. Thank you. Thank you. Anything else?
All right. Thank you so much to all of our speakers today. Don't leave yet. This is the fun part where we give away wonderful gifts. So we have 10 gift cards that are $10 each from Homeward Kitchen, which they're the ones that are over there next to Kickback Jacks. They brought those fabulous chocolate chip cookies today. And she had to leave early, so she gave me all of these. And we also have fabulous door prizes, one from Brookdale Senior Living that is a really cool plant stand. I'm going to bring it up to show you. I'm going to put it over here on the table. And this actually, you can kind of put it in any position you kind of want, which I think is kind of groovy. So we asked for some garden-themed door prizes if anybody had one. And if Jennifer Garner's group would like to come on up, Amanda and Shelley. Yes? Oh, let me explain how I did that. So while you guys already sat down and I'm running around trying to do everything, I realized I didn't have a little cheat sheet. So what I did is the actual, I was actually in the front. And everybody who called to register, I have those forms. So, and there's a number next to each person's name. So what I did is the people who canceled and had a line through it, I didn't include them, but I only included the numbers of all of the people that had their names on the list. So that's in the bowl here. So when I draw the number, it's whatever your number was when you signed up. Now there's a few empty chairs here, so that means your odds are better for the ones that are here. No, you didn't get a number when you signed up. I will show you what we do. When you call the front desk, did you call the front desk? You just came. So you didn't sign up? Okay. How we do it is people call the front desk and register, and we have a sheet that has numbers and lines. And so when everybody calls, we put their name and we put their phone number. So who didn't call and put their name and phone number? So can you actually raise your hands? If you called the front desk, who called the front desk? Lovely. Who didn't call or come to the front desk? Okay, so if you came to the front desk and you said, I want to go, if you called the front desk and said, I want to go, your name is on the list. Whose name is not on the list? So we have 3, 4, okay. So we are going to, would you mind going to the front up there? You can give me this. And there's a little Jennifer Garner notepad. And if you don't mind, we'll go ahead and write your names real quick. Let me go grab a pen from the Jennifer Garner group. Without the Jennifer Garner group, I would not really have a lot of these things together. Pen, it was here. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Hey, look at you. You got it all together. Thank you so much. All righty. So forget about that, Alvita. It's okay. I've got this now. Okay. Now we need names. So guess. Okay, so is that it? Yes. Susan. All right, Alvita, you're going to be my chooser of names and numbers. Okay. You shake up that, ruffle it around with your fingers. All righty. The first one up is going to get a $10 gift card from Homeward Kitchen. And that would be number 11, which is, oh, Laura Stutson. She's not even here. You got to be in it to win it. You got to be here. Number 12 is Bonnie Elhart. Yay! Bonnie gets a $10 gift card. Okay, now we're also going to give Jennifer Garner's, one of Jennifer Garner's gifts away. We also have Bowles Funeral. If you don't want to come on up, anybody with the door prizes, please. Okay, so this wonderful basket of goodies from, oh, it's a hat with lots of things inside. Isn't that fabulous? Okay, what is the number? And a Lowe's gift card in there? Oh my goodness. This one is going to be very lucky. Number 36. Jerry Phipps. Woo, Jerry! All right, next up. This will be for another $10 gift card. This is number 38. Vicki York. Is Vicki here? All right, Vicki. Okay, so the next one up will be for another Jennifer Garner gift, and this is a beautiful, what is this kind of a tree? Was that a money tree? Bamboo! And a Lowe's gift card. There's two here. All right, this one is number 32. Dorothy Woodard. Woo-hoo, Dorothy! All right. This one is going to be another $10 gift card. Yeah, exactly. This is number 15. Susan Fink. Yay! Thank you so much. Thank you. All righty. Okay. 37. Pam Sterner. All right. Okay. Going to go back to Jennifer Garner, and she has got a beautiful orchid. So this one up, number 14. Alma Goff. Alma is not here. So the next lucky winner of the lovely orchid is number 4, Lynn Jones. Lynn Jones, going once, going twice. Nope. Okay. Number 9. Nancy Ware. All right, Nancy. Okay, next up is another $10 gift card. Number 41. Ginger Minicello, is she still here? Oh, Ginger's going to be disappointed. The next one we have for the $10 gift card, number 17. Judy Oldham. Judy Oldham. No Judy. Next one for the $10 gift card, number 13, lucky 13. Loretta Carter. Yay! Thank you so much. Yay, very good. All right. Next up, how about we give away the plant stand? Plant stand. It's from Brookdale Senior Living. Gosh, my fingers have to it's number 6. Cindy Podell. Cindy Podell, no? 33. Susan Lahan. Lahan. Very good. Yay, see, there you go. Okay, next one up, and we're going to be giving away bowls. Funeral Home has a lovely basket of garden apparatus. Number 29.
Diane Minton.
Diane Minton, yay. Another $10 gift card. How about we give one of those? And that is for 16. Walker Oldham. Must have been with the other lady, Oldham. Number 31. Mina or Mina Warwick. All right. Is it Mina? Mina or Mina? Mina. Okay, next up, we're going to give away Tupperware from Dakota here. That's nice. What do you have in there? Awesome. Excellent, thank you. This is lucky number 7. Lucky number 7.
Gloria Olson.
All right, Gloria. Okay, we're going to give another $10 gift card from Homeward Kitchen. 43. Annette Daniels. Yay, Annette. She's right here. There you go. Conveniently located in the front row. Okay, the next one is another $10 gift card, and that's number 5.
Ed Weeks.
Ed Weeks, all right. Oh, thank you so much. Okay. We have the last one of these, and then we have one more gift from Bowles. This one is number 34.
Kathy Huddleston.
Kathy Huddleston, is she here? No. We need another. And you have 2 hands. Look at that. Number 25. Jill Margison. All right. Look at that. 1, 2, 3 in the row. There you go. And don't forget these 2. Those. And then just pick one of those. And the last gift we have is a very cute little watering can that is an elephant for good luck. And what is this? Oh, Susan. Yay! All right. Well, stay tuned. How many, with a show of hands? Earlier, I was talking about Dakota from Tupperware doing like a little cooking class on how to make your own like ranch dressing or barbecue rubs and things. Okay, wonderful. I'm going to get with her and put that on the schedule probably in August. And then what we'll do is maybe we'll schedule that in the kitchen, because what that will come along with is also a set of Tupperware, 4 little bottles that you could put those, what it is that you make inside of that. So I will be looking for the sponsors to help pay for that. And then you get to come and you get to learn and get those little gifts on your way out. So thank you all so much for coming. Please go to the food table. If there's another cookie left or whatever, please grab it. And hope you guys have a lovely day.